Hey y'all, good evening. Happy early 4th of July if you celebrate the 4th of July. So unfortunately, it is raining cats and dogs outside. It is hurricane season, and that is probably going to be my entire summer down here in Southeast Louisiana. It's not something I wasn't prepared for, let's just put it that way. And it is World Watercolor Month, so happy World Watercolor Month, especially if you are painting along with the prompts. I wish you the best of luck. Because it is so rainy outside, it is just not a good time for me to be doing daily watercolor prompts, and I also paint a lot as it is, and I cannot afford to totally readjust my schedule for it, but maybe next year, maybe I'll be in a different and better place next year to be able to participate in that. But if you are interested in learning more about World Watercolor Month, if you'd like to participate this year or next year, then I think you can find information at doodlewash.com if you'd like to participate in that. It's only the second day of July. You could definitely get caught up. So I'm just going to take a couple of minutes to give people a chance to come on in. I'm going to go ahead and let people know that we're live. It feels like it's been no time at all since I hung out with you guys last, but that is because we streamed last night. But I had this really fun idea for a simple technique for painting vibrant watercolors. I was really hoping it wouldn't be raining because that would mean the dry times would be a little bit easier to deal with. But I'm cranked the dehumidifier down. I'm gonna ask Joseph to go ahead and do me a favor and check on that because I'm not hearing it. And hopefully you guys are hearing, yeah, y'all should be able to hear me. Okay, good. After last night, I'm like, oh, maybe they can't hear me, but you guys should be able to hear me. And I just heard it click on, so we should be good. So the materials I'm using for tonight's watercolor demonstration, I'm going to be painting on cottonrag paper tonight, which, to be real, is my preference when it comes to watercolor. It is what I prefer to paint on. And I am painting on the Blick Studio 100% cotton block. So this is a pre-stretched watercolor block that's going to make doing what we're doing tonight a whole lot easier. I also have my daily driver palettes. Awesome! I'm so glad you can hear me well, especially because we've had so many problems with that. My daily driver watercolor palette, so this has a wide array of colors. I've also got my secondary palette, which has some bright, fun colors that are really going to lend themselves well to painting watercolor effects. And I also have in this palette some really nice dark colors, some dark blues, some dark purples, and I also have Daniel Smith Lunar Black. You don't have to have Lunar Black for this. You may also want to have a black ink on hand for this technique. I also have masking fluid, and I've gone ahead and poured some in a really small container. This is going to make applying it a whole lot easier. It means I don't have to open my big bottle here. You're also going to want to have, you can use regular bar soap for this, or you can use brush soap. We use this to protect the bristles of our watercolor brushes when we're using masking fluid. I find this to be really helpful. I've got some synthetic brushes handy that I'm going to use for applying masking fluid, as well as some of my favorite brushes. I have a small ceramic plate. This is just one I got at the dollar store, so you don't have to spend a lot of money for something like this, and it's just handy to have for mixing colors. I have a masking fluid pickup. This makes picking up the masking fluid after I no longer need it on the paper much easier. And I have a cup of clean water. I am also going to go ahead and Google reference images of fireworks. I happen to like working from reference, so it's handy to have it. And I'm going to go ahead and turn on virtual desktop so that hopefully you guys can see what I'm working with. So if you are confident in your freehanding skills, you can go straight in. You don't need to do any kind of underdrawing or sketching. I prefer to do some underdrawing. It just makes me feel a little bit more confident. Let's make sure we can see the whole thing on the screen. It looks like we will be able to. You don't have to work this large, but I did think working at this size would make my life a lot easier. And y'all are not going to be able to see it, but I have a little thumbnail sketch of what I have in mind for this. So the camera is going to lose me because I am standing up for this, but I'm going to lightly sketch in my fireworks, or what I want, because I'm thinking of them like I would arrange flowers, you know? So I'm dealing with large, round shapes. I'm just kind of lightly sketching them in. You can sketch them in with a yellow color pencil. You could even, if you wanted to, use some wax and do a wax resist technique rather than ever using the masking fluid. You could just put your wax down on the paper. So do you guys have any fun plans for the 4th this year? We're heading out to a local fireworks show tomorrow evening. So what I'm doing right now is one of my referenced fireworks has this like neat radiating effect. So I'm trying to very simply replicate that. And then we have some where they're almost like a dandelion. They've got like a really tight cluster in the center. And then it kind of sparkles and fizzles out as we get away from the center. Ooh, if you guys can hear that, that's thunder. I was not joking when I said it's a stormy one. It looked like it was going to be a clear day today. I was really hoping it would. If only because that makes the dry times a lot easier, but nope, not during hurricane season. And like I said, if you're more confident, if you don't need to freehand it, you can go straight in with your masking. Well, we're actually going to apply some really bright, vivid colors first, and then we're going to do our masking fluid. But you could, if you were confident, you could skip this step. And for tonight's project, you want to work with removable masking fluid. You don't want masking fluid that's going to like permanently adhere itself to the paper surface. Now, one of the good things about me going in and sketching this for y'all is you can actually see what I'm doing. It's a little bit easier to see than if it was just masking fluid. So I want to get some of those smaller ones. also get some of the really small ones that just sort of start to drift off. I wonder if I can capture that. It's really neat though to see how much variation you can get with fireworks. And sorry if I start making weird faces. It's me just trying to decide which fireworks I want to draw. So many good options. And you've even got the really pretty multicolored ones. So I'm trying to draw really light, really loose. I'm not really tightening any details up. I'm not really worried about that. Part of that is because I know when I apply my black paint or my black ink or whatever I choose to put underneath, it's going to cover a lot of like any misdrawing that I've done, anything that I don't really want visible. Poor Bowie. He's wandering around. I think he'd like to go outside, but it's raining. So I think once I do these little smaller sparklers, we can move on to the actual painting. Though to me, having like a solid underdrawing, knowing where I want things to go, knowing the direction I want it to take, I find that that's kind of like investing in success. You know, like you're more likely to get something you like out of it. So I think in the past I've done a fireworks tutorial where we used Brusho to create our firework technique, and that made for some interesting effects. I did really like how that turned out, and I can probably grab the video of that for you guys, but I wanted something today that I could like really do layers of color. So I've got the Naomi palette. Gonna take it off to the side, spritz it down with water, give it a chance to activate. Got some really nice bright colors in there. Gonna grab my Daily Driver palette as well because it's got some yellows that my regular palette just doesn't have. Some blues too. So that one might be a little bit harder to see. Let me try and rearrange things really quick so we can get everything visible, at least as visible as possible. All right. So next, I'm going to pop out the chat because I can't keep up with both. that's nice. I hope you have a nice visit. And Joseph said I should adjust the camera more so I'm in the shot more. All right. Thank you. Pop out the chat. No, I'm not traveling until later on this summer, like the end of July and the start of August. And house stuff has been going, knock on wood, quite well. So hopefully that'll continue. So I'm going to grab some bright colors, some greens, some pinks, some yellows. I'm going to have these handy because once I start applying paint to the paper, I want to be able to work kind of quick. A couple of different ways I can go. I can do like a wash of all these different colors modeled together. I can focus on the fireworks themselves and then blend out. So we have some options. But I think I'm just going to go in like this. And basically, you just want to focus on getting your really bright, fun colors where the fireworks are going to be. And it's also fine if they don't perfectly blend, because that's not necessarily the direction we are trying to go in. And you can use a mop for this, that'll cover more ground. I'm using something small enough that I can actually like get into these half pans and grab the color. And one of the great things about working on a block like I'm doing tonight is that it's going to hold it for me. So this shouldn't be going anywhere. I don't have to worry about a lot of buckling. And one of the reasons I'm working on cotton rag paper is that you get these really, really nice diffused wet into wet blends. Can also do some oh, what's the word? Where you're like sprinkling the color. I don't know what's wrong with my brain tonight. It's like as soon as the camera starts, I can't remember anything. Like you can sprinkle it on. So, and for some reason, this already dried despite me literally hearing the thunder out there. And ideally, you'd like to work with 2 cups of clean water for this, so you have your clean mix, your dirty mix. Oh, nice. Who are you going to send the postcard to? I'm going to grab some yellow. And then I'm going to go back into the orange and finish it out. Oh, I cannot twist the monitor to the artwork. You know that. Unfortunately, but you know that because I just don't have room on that little desk to really be able to do that. That would probably make for a way better shot, and I'm sorry. But it would also end up messing up a lot of stuff that's kind of precariously perched. So I'm just going in and adding a little bit more color. I really want to change out this cup of water, but I also want to catch everything while it's still wet, especially because things have been drying kind of quick for me for some reason. Oh, nice. I'm sure your aunt will love that. Trying to decide if I want to let this layer dry or continue and try to add some color depth to it. Definitely want to refresh my water. It looks like mud right now. Also want to flick in some other colors. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go switch out my water and be right back. Oh, thank you, Dawn. That's really nice. I'm glad it can bring you joy and enjoyment. So now I've lost some of the more spontaneous, but that's okay. I'm just going to use a synthetic brush that's loaded down with lots of water and make a huge mess all over the place. Trying to break this area up in particular. And I also notice I don't have any blue, and I know we have blue fireworks out there. I do want to make sure though that even though I'm throwing a lot of paint on the paper, that I don't oversaturate it too much. So it's kind of pooling over there, and that's going to take a while to dry. Oh, that sounds lovely. It'd be so nice to receive a handmade postcard with flowers on it. Oh, hey, Cindy, welcome. So with this, I need to give it a chance to dry. It is very wet, very saturated, and it probably will, unfortunately, take a little bit of time since it is such a wet night tonight. So what I'm going to do is I am going to go ahead and turn on the fan, and that'll help get the air circulating, help get things moving. I recommend you guys take a short break, grab something to drink, grab something to eat, because unfortunately when we're doing watercolors, we're on watercolor time. You know, we don't get to decide how long it's going to take to dry or how long it's going to take sometimes to even paint something. So I guess I take a break, grab a snack, enjoy the music, and I'll do what I can on my end to help this hurry up. Now, I hear this every time, so I'm going to go ahead and caveat it. You can use a hairdryer to help speed things up. Mine is packed away at the back of my closet. since we're living in a rental. So I do not have a hairdryer that I could use to help dry this out. I do have the AC going at full tilt, but it being Louisiana in the summer, it is pretty wet outside. What I am going to try to do, and I don't know how successful I'll be, is I'm just going to try to go in, dab up some of this extra liquid, and that'll hopefully help that area dry a little bit quicker at least. That's an area that, I like how I say that, and then I'm like, oh, you know what I could do? I could add some yellow. Just because it looks a little bit too much like four corners and not like, oh, no, 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 Becca. Don't make mud. Come on. I have to do it kind of carefully because it will turn to mud on me. Oh, thank you. We've got some really vibrant colors. Hopefully they dry close to as vibrant. Maybe not as vibrant since they are watercolor. But as you guys can see, anything I do with this right now, it's going to turn it to mud. So I'm just going to go ahead and step away from it and let it dry for a little bit. You ready to hear the twist? Dip a firework in liquid watercolor. I'm sure there's a channel that is totally willing to do something similar to that. I would be afraid of burning the house down, so I'm not willing to do that. All right, so I'm going to, like I said, turn on the fan, take a quick break, get some water, because we're on watercolor time now. Okay, guys, it is not totally dry, and we do, honestly, so real talk here, from someone who has struggled to use masking fluid for a while, and it took a while to figure out what works for me. You want your paper as dry as possible, like 100% dry ideally. A lot of the surface, this is still very damp, but a lot of the surface moisture has evaporated, so we're well on our way. The fan is helping a lot, which is great. We're also getting some really nice granulation from some of these colors, which I love. We're getting some blooming. Those popping noises you guys hear in the background, it's one of two things. It is thunderstorming outside, so we knew that. But my neighbors are setting off the major artillery fireworks today on the 2nd of July, despite there being several veterans in the neighborhood who have PTSD and have specifically requested that people not do that. See, I actually really like fireworks, but when someone's setting them off has a negative emotional impact on other people in the neighborhood, that's when I have a problem with it. So sounds like somebody setting off bombs, but this needs to dry a little bit longer, but I am liking how it's coming along so far. You can still somewhat see the pencil underneath. Maybe y'all can't. I can, which is good, which is helpful. So it does need to be a lot more dry than it currently is. So I really appreciate y'all's patience in hanging out with me while we literally watch paint dry. You know, sometimes there are days where it's so dry out, it evaporates like that, and you're struggling to make sure that colors are blending properly. You can't do wet into wet because it's so dry out there. And then there are days where it's so wet that you're waiting a really, really long time for paint to dry. So you win some, you lose some, but I appreciate y'all hanging out with me this evening. Hopefully you guys are painting, drawing, playing video games, doing something that you love and that is relaxing for you. So if you are just coming in, so what we did is we did a really, really, really rough sketch of an approximation of fireworks. We're not trying to do a perfect drawing of fireworks because we are going to use masking fluid to kind of mask off our lighter areas. So we're just kind of drawing them as more generic, simplified shapes. And I did that using several different reference photos as inspiration. So then I applied a wash of several really bright colors. Some of them, when they mix together, not so bright, but that's okay. You can use whatever bright, fun colors you like. This would be a great time to maybe bust out those neon watercolors or to bust out some super saturated watercolors. So this is a great chance to kind of play around with that. This is also a decent one if you paint with student grade watercolors, because you can do more layers of this, but we're really, tonight, given how wet it is and the dry time, I'm just going to do one layer of the color. But if you want more color intensity in some areas, you can add more color after it dries, or while it's still wet, you can flick more color on there. This is really however you want to do it. And once this has fully dried, it's taut again. It's like taut like a drum, like flat against the block. I'm going to apply masking fluid to our fireworks. Let that dry, and then we're going to do a wash of either black or purple or blue or a mixture of them, whatever you like. So it's a really simple watercolor technique. You absolutely don't have to do it this large. This is very big. A smaller one could make a lovely card, and it doesn't have to be for 4th of July. It could be for a birthday, it could be for a christening, it could be for Chinese New Year, it could be for a graduation, it can be for whatever event you feel is fireworks worthy, any kind of celebratory event. And by working large, it allows me to demonstrate the techniques a lot easier for you guys to see instead of like a teeny tiny one. But I think it would be really charming as a teeny tiny card as well. So, like I said, I'm still waiting for this to dry, but that's okay. I appreciate that you guys are being super cool, hanging out with me tonight, and being patient. Oh, hey, Dawn. I do have a heating gun. I will also say, so I've mentioned this a few times before. I'm not a big fan of using heating guns and hair dryers on watercolors because I have found that it tends to turn the colors kind of chalky, and it can also push pigments around. So while I'm not like dissing other artists who do use that, I found that in my experience, it doesn't have the effect that I necessarily want. Sometimes I'll use them on streams because the paper is just not drying, the paint's just not going anywhere, and I don't want to sit there and make y'all wait for several hours. But even though it's super humid out, it is drying. So I figure maybe 10 minutes at most, we should be good. But I do appreciate the hint. I do prefer to let it just naturally dry. Yeah, and then I have to turn off and on the mics when I'm using them. So they definitely have their pros and cons, and I can see why other artists use heat guns and hair dryers for this kind of thing. I've just not had great experiences with it. Boo, 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 boo. Painting fireworks like these is so much better. Well, you know, I would rather be in here hanging out with y'all painting fireworks than out in that weather setting off fireworks because it's really, really gross. I really hope that tomorrow it rains in the morning and that we have our evening clearer than what it has been. But I mean, that's just what it's like living down here. No, they're two separate things. I own both a heat gun. I own a heat gun for my resin stuff. I recently got it. And I own a hair dryer that I only bought for watercolor because you guys really wanted me to do it. And I really hate it. So no, we're not calling a hair dryer a heat gun now, even though pew pew, it does kind of look like one. So I'm going to give this a little bit more time to dry. I'm going to pop that AFK screen up. So if you did not take a break, if you did not get a snack, you still got a chance. I was really hoping that we would have speedy dry times tonight. Sometimes you get lucky, especially because it can be a 3-layer technique. It doesn't have to have, yeah, heat guns are a lot more intense. Another thing I noticed, and I think I've mentioned it before, is that I've found that when you're using a heat gun or a hairdryer masking fluid, it can actually cause your removable masking fluid to permanently attach itself to the paper fibers and become immovable masking fluid. So I'm just not gonna mess with the hairdryer tonight. Having a desiccant box would be a good solution. I mean, yeah, maybe. Why not? Do it the Louisiana way and put it on top of a bed of rice and hope that the rice sucks the moisture out of the air. I mean, when you paint in humid environments, you got to get creative. A hurricane is headed our way. Please stay safe. I know that Elsa is hitting like Florida, and we'll probably get some rain from that. And now my mom was also saying there's another hurricane that's coming this way. We'll do our best to stay as safe as possible. I mean, you know how it is with hurricanes. Like, you do your best to batten down the hatches. You make sure that you have fresh water. You make sure that you have non-perishables that you could eat if, heaven forbid, the worst happened. If it's really looking bad, we might head over to my mom's because she's got a natural gas generator, and this place does not. So if it's looking real bad, we'll probably mini evacuate to an area that is on higher ground and has a generator. And yeah, pastel watercolors are so much fun, especially for something like, these are going to be fireworks when we're done. I'm really looking forward to seeing how it looks, the final reveal. All right, so like I said, I'm going to pop the AFK screen up just to give this a chance to dry a little bit more before I put the masking fluid on, and I'll be back soon. There's one more dry time. I'm so sorry about that. When I had the idea to do this, I was hoping for a drier day. You know what I mean? Because even here in Louisiana, there are days where it's so dry, the watercolors dry instantly, and then there are days when it's, and I have to say, as bad as the weather is outside, it is actually drying better than I feared. So I'll give it credit where credit is due. But I do appreciate I had considered recording this and then editing it and then having it out for the 4th of July. But I thought, you know, if I'm going to do all that, it'd be fun to just hang out with you guys and try this out as a stream, since theoretically this should work no problem, but I haven't done this exact thing yet. I haven't used this for fireworks yet. So now we're finally going to use our masking fluid. So this is technically like a 3-step watercolor process, right? Where we have our base layer, we're going to mask that base layer, and then we're going to paint black on top of it, and then we're going to remove our masking fluid. And it's really, really important that your paper be as dry as possible, because otherwise it could adhere permanently to the paper and tear the paper when you try to remove it. So it's really important that I try to dry it as much as possible. And unfortunately, you can't control the weather, so you know. So for masking fluid, my tips are, I like to put it in a much smaller container. This prevents the whole bottle from drying out and spoiling prematurely. It's also an easier amount of masking fluid to work with. I use a masking fluid pickup to pick up my masking, to remove it afterwards, because I have really dry hands and I can't seem to get the masking fluid up without using a masking fluid pickup. And then what I'm going to do off camera, I'm going to go do it at a sink, is I'm going to use a synthetic brush. So a brush that is not very expensive, that if you ruin, that's okay. I haven't ruined a brush yet, but I don't like taking risks with expensive brushes. And I'm going to use brush soap. You can also use baby shampoo. You can use just a bar of soap. I'm going to lather my brush soap into my brush. That's going to protect the bristles, so when I dip it in the masking fluid, it doesn't get sucked up into the brush. And I want a large brush, and I also want a smaller synthetic brush for this, which is in the bathroom where I wash my watercolor brushes. So I am going to go ahead and lather this up with soap, and I'll be right back. I am also going to go ahead and pull my fireworks reference back up. It's just handy to have. Okay, I can just barely see my pencil markings. So I'm going to have to get kind of on top of it to see what I'm doing. So it being World Watercolor Month, what are some of your favorite watercolor techniques? It can be a tried and true technique that is super simple, but you just love it and you find yourself relying on it time and time again. There's nothing wrong with relying on what works for you. It could be something that you never really get a lot of a chance to use because it's kind of a one-trick pony kind of technique, but you think it's really interesting and you wish you had more of an opportunity to use it. So unfortunately, even though this is slightly tinted yellow masking fluid, you guys probably can't see super well what I'm doing, but I'm using kind of a variety of brush strokes. So I'm using these larger brush strokes for like the main part of the explosion. And then I'm using these smaller brush strokes kind of radiating out. So I'm kind of thinking about like dandelions. I'm thinking about like anything that just has this kind of radial pattern to it. So I guess mostly I'm thinking about dandelions, maybe thistles too. But I'm thinking about that as I'm just kind of trying to fill in our explosion. And this is something like you could get really detailed with this. You know, you could get really granular and do all sorts of different marks and really have fun with it. This could be your opportunity to get really creative with this, because this is such a simple technique. There's not a lot of steps to it, which kind of makes it great, because it kind of makes it something. What I really love, and I think I've mentioned this during the craft streams, is I love crafts that are like simple to understand, but then difficult to make something you're kind of happy with immediately, or you know, the first time you've tried it. But in order to really get good at it, you have to spend a lot of time finessing it and practicing with it. And I feel like watercolor is like that too, where you can, if you know the basics, if you've watched enough tutorials, you can kind of make something you're happy with. But to really find your voice in watercolor, you have to experiment, you have to be willing to try new things, you have to get out of your comfort zone. And these sort of things are actually very out of my comfort zone. I'm usually someone who likes to paint. I like to do a lot of like portraiture, and I like to paint environments. So something that's kind of loose and wild, like fireworks, isn't necessarily my wheelhouse. I don't do this a whole lot. It doesn't mean I'm not enjoying myself and having fun, but it's not something I would normally, I guess, give myself permission to paint, if you guys know what I mean. And that's an area I'd actually like to play around with more, is just kind of like informal, loose, quote unquote easy sort of art. The sort of stuff that I could teach to little kids, I could teach to adults, and the success is really going to be up to them. It's not like, oh, that was too hard for that age, or, you know, oh, they're too stuck in their own heads to be able to do that well. It like turns into, well, they just weren't interested in trying, you know? Oh, I almost wish I skip. But that's okay. I can definitely make it up as I go along. I'm also, a little bit later on, going to use a lot of splatter techniques for this. I just want to kind of get my big major shapes blocked in. especially because splatter techniques can put down a lot of masking fluid on the paper, and then I'd have to try and work around that. I also want to give a huge shout out not only to you guys for hanging out with me this evening and making this rainy 2nd of July a little bit more fun, but a big shout out to Joseph, my husband, for helping out with the chat and keeping up and answering people's questions whenever he can. I always appreciate it. I don't always remember to say thank you, but it's a huge help, and I think a lot of people don't necessarily have that kind of help, so I do want to take a moment to say thanks. I think right here you can probably see what I'm doing a little bit better, and I think you're really going to be able to see it once this is dried and we do our layer of black, because masking fluid has a bit of a resist. So it's going to want to resist the paint a little bit. You know, I don't know if this is bad, good, or what, but I've already started considering what art supplies I'm going to take with me to the 4th of July celebration. Last year I took multicolored gel pens and just kind of practiced using those to focus on mark making and sketch like some of the trees and some of the people, and I enjoyed doing that. Maybe I'll bring some crayons and do that, something similar with that. I could bring watercolor, and while that would have the lovely benefit of perhaps opening up conversations with people, which is I'm into that. I have a hard time starting conversations with people I don't know, but I'm happy to talk to people. But it also is a lot of like prep and packing, and it might be so I don't know about you guys, but sometimes if I'm doing travel stuff, if it's too fussy, if it's too much like, oh, I gotta remember to bring a bottle of water, and I gotta remember to bring this, and I gotta remember to bring that, if it has too many parts, and I'm just going for like part of an afternoon, I will sometimes forget or just not ever get around to doing it because there's never a good time, you know? So the simpler it is, the easier it is, the less I care about it. Sometimes the better it turns out. So I'm kind of leaning towards the crayons. And just play around with mark making and you know, noodling around in my sketchbook. I had a lot of fun with that stream last night, especially once we actually got it going, you know, and we didn't have to continue to seed AI Dungeon, and we just kind of rolled with the weird horror prompts. And I really enjoyed like doodling what came to mind. I'm sorry part of me is sorry. I'm not like wholly sorry, but part of me is sorry it wasn't working better, and part of me is kind of glad because it gave us a chance to like show more of AI Dungeon and show some of the setup and just kind of get to talk about it as a, you know, a possible role play tool for some people. Like, I don't have a problem with role play as a concept or D&D or tabletop games or anything like that. I don't have like, I have friends who play, and I have friends who love Critical Role and stuff. Like, there isn't a problem with that. I just don't always enjoy collaborative storytelling. I do actually like brainstorming story ideas with Joseph, and we have several projects we're kind of picking at all the time. I like that, but it's hard for me to want to open up and let other people play in my sandbox, play in my world building. Okay, so there was the Sorry. Making fireworks noises as I think fireworky thoughts. Shoot, I'm having fun just applying the masking fluid. I don't normally let the masking fluid do all the work for me, so this is kind of novel. But as somebody with ADHD, I love when things are novel, when I'm trying something new. It really keeps me engaged and it helps me stay in the moment. So and that's quite a testament to watercolor, that I have been hyper focused on watercolor for 10 years now. But there's just always more to learn, and new tricks and new artists who do things differently than what you've done. On that note, I haven't had a chance. My friend Allie sent me the how to use the materials video that Heikala apparently created to go with the box, even though it wasn't mentioned in the box. And I definitely do want to like sit down and practice some of those techniques and just, you know, fiddle around with it and see what I can learn. I've just been kind of super busy this week with other stuff, so I haven't forgotten. I definitely want to, I put everything back together in the box, not like, okay, time to go away now, but like, you know, like so that when I'm ready and have time to do that, I can just pull out the box and everything will be there. I also, since it is World Watercolor Month, I want to do a stream where I kind of like spoof on that box, but not actually spoofing on the box, just where I show you guys all of my favorite supplies and all the stuff I really like to use, and I maybe demonstrate it. So I was kind of thinking maybe next week, depending on how things go. I know that kind of takes us off of our flower painting kick a little bit, but it could also be like a good, I love seeing how other artists use stuff. That's one of the reasons why I enjoyed the Heikala box, is because the materials she uses are very different from how I use the materials. So that was kind of, you know, exciting for me. And it also might be like a good intro for people who have watched the streams and they're interested and they'd like to try painting along, but they're not really sure what materials they would enjoy, or how to, you know, how to best spend their money to get something that would make them happy. So you guys can see, compared to last week's stream where we were doing the mask in a dipper bottle, I prefer working with a synthetic brush and just kind of applying it, like painting it on. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with having a different method for applying it, you know. I just think it's so cool to see how everybody learns differently, or a technique that works so well for one person is like another person's nightmare. Like they hate it. Like I don't like loud white noise sounds, so I really don't like hair dryers. They just frustrate. I don't like vacuum cleaners. It's like I'm a dog. I think they're very annoying. So, you know, that's another reason why I'm just like loath to grab one. Uh-oh.
Can you bring up the chat? Someone asked a while back what kind of pins and brushes you use to put down masking fluid.
I will after I finish applying it, because I don't want it to dry on the brush and ruin the brush. But thank you. Well, you could bring it up. I would be happy to tell you guys. So I am using Winsor & Newton's removable masking fluid, the kind that has a little bit of dye in it, because you're supposed to be able to see it on white paper a bit better. I still find it hard to see when it dries, but that's okay, because after you've applied watercolor to it, it becomes much easier to see. And I use cheap synthetic brushes for the application. I've never had a brush die on me, but that doesn't mean it couldn't happen. So I don't ever use my nicer, I never use my synthetic mix where it's like mixed natural hair and synthetic, or my full natural hair brushes for this. And before I start applying masking fluid, I use brush soap. You don't have to use brush soap. You could use bar soap or baby shampoo, like whatever soapy thing you have on hand. I kind of like work it into the bristles, and that kind of prevents the masking fluid from seeping in and ruining my brush. So next, I do want to get some like nice splatter effect, especially because we've got all this beautiful color. So I'm using my large brush and a tapping motion just to get that randomized splatter. And if you look at the reference, you guys can kind of see so fireworks are so neat because you do have like the actual concentrated blast, but then you get like random bits of ash and random bits of smoke catching the light, and you get stray fireworks that kind of went off course. So there's order, but there's also chaos to it. In many ways, they're a lot like painting flowers, So I've already painted the more orderly part. Now I paint the chaos. Chaos is the fun part. It's all the fun part. In this instance, though, I'm not trying to capture the smoke. I'm not trying to capture anything super fancy. I'm going for like an abstraction of fireworks. And something else you can do, and I'm gonna have to wash my hands really well after this because I am allergic to latex, is you can like try to flick it. You can use a toothbrush for this too, and it'll give you a different spray pattern. It'll give you a different size. I could have used this smaller brush. I ended up not having any real trouble getting the effects that I wanted. But you can see by flicking it, you get some longer ones, and by tapping it, you get some bigger kind of bursts. And I want different size speckles. Now, in the past, I've used Brusho for this sort of kind of, because Brusho gives you that beautiful like exploding color effect. But Brusho is dye-based, and basically if I try to put another layer of color on top of it, All right, finally get a chance to check the chat. I appreciate it. Okay. Roomba came in on the 4th. We would have suggested we place some of the poppers on the ground. Oh my gosh, you're awful. That's terrible. Joseph, no. Why do you have such bad ideas? A desiccant box would be a good solution. Just put it beneath the pad and close the top. You know, I would be really interested in trying that. Something else I think would be interesting to try is creating a box that has a couple of like computer fans in it and just get that airflow moving. Of course, you have to have somewhere for it to go. So something I do want to point out is sorry, y'all, I just had some water. As long as you can still see the white of the masking fluid, it is still wet, and you don't want to apply water or watercolor on top of wet masking fluid for a variety of reasons. One of which is it might permanently fuse to the paper and then never remove. You also want to wait until your watercolor paper is fully dry before you remove your masking fluid as well. So even though this is a really simple technique we're doing tonight, it's just super, super reliant on the weather being just perfect. I have also found that you want like a Goldilocks application approach. You don't want it too thick. You don't want it too thin. And I've also found that, okay, so I've tried a few different masking fluids, and this is the one that works the best for me. I have people who swear by Schmincke. I've had terrible luck with Schmincke, but I mostly like the Winsor & Newton removable masking fluid. You do have to make sure to check that it's the removable one because they also have a permanent one, which I'm just like, why would you do that? Call it something else. And they look almost the same. So you want to make sure it's the removable masking fluid, and it should say on the bottle somewhere that it's the removable. You can also see where they added a little bit of dye or pigment. And you also want to avoid like shaking it like you would a can of spray paint. You know, you want to gently shake it because you don't want to aerate it. It's a latex product, and the more air you add, the faster it dries out or rots in the bottle. And that is another point for putting it in a tiny little dinky dip or a paint pot like this, is that if you're not constantly opening your bottle, it's going to take longer to rot, so it'll last you longer. But unfortunately with masking fluid, it is your mileage may vary situation. There's so many variables into what makes it work for you, what doesn't make it work for you. I have had good experiences with the Pibio and with the Molotov masking fluid pins. With them being removable, the only problem is that and I've talked about this, it gunks up in the nib, and then it's like, oh, I can't use it anymore. It does look like a tropical juicy drink. I'm excited to see how it turns out when we finally can remove all the masking fluid. Yeah, y'all know about, Dawn said that they live in Belize and they know about hurricane season. Yup. I'm wishing you guys safety and health and a mild season this year. There's no like 100% avoiding it, but hopefully it's not a harsh one this year. Looking up desiccant cabinets. I don't think artists are the market. We're never the market. We should be the market in so many instances, but we're never the market. Honestly, I'm feeling a little sleepy myself. It's been a long day. I went to go help with the kitten, which I love the kitten, but it means a lot of driving. It's like an hour total driving that I don't necessarily plan to do. And for some reason these days, driving makes me super sleepy. I'm a big fan of glazing as well. And Joseph pointed out that we are having some connectivity issues. It would not surprise me. It's raining outside, and some of the Cox cable lines are underground and some of them are on the power lines. So if a tree falls, that's probably the connection issue. But I do dual record these streams, and even though we're doing this live right now, I would like to have a time-lapse version available because it is a really simple technique. It should not take you 3 hours by any stretch, unless you live in super humid land. It shouldn't take you 3 hours to do. Realistically, if weather's on your side, maybe an hour, with the dry times being the big reason it's taking a long time. And Calvin said, just like when I'm drawing a character, so difficult when compared to landscape, which comes naturally to me. See, if I'm drawing landscapes from reference, it's easy, but making up landscapes is challenging for me. Hey, Sarah L., welcome. I need to learn ways to use masking fluid. What pen or brush are you using with the fluid? And I think I talked about that. I'm trying to catch up on the chat. Hema said, crayons are so fun. Yes, they are. Watercolor techniques. I don't know any besides using salt to make little spritzy effect, but that was always fun. I love that technique too. I'm actually gonna use it tonight, just to hopefully get like a little extra oomph with the watercolor. All right, Dawn, have a good evening. It is probably pretty late for you. Have a good night's sleep and have a wonderful weekend. And good night as well, Made by Dawn. I know you had a long day at work, so I hope you get some good rest. And capturing water is incredibly difficult. That's one of the areas. We have a beach trip coming up, and that's one of the areas I think I need to like hunker down and focus as well, because painting water is really difficult. But it seems like it would be a fun yet frustrating challenge, right? The weighting technique. That's the hardest technique. I have a tool designed to do the flicking specifically. It's a big brush. And it is too big to put in this little dinky dip. And Cindy said, I destroyed one of my favorite brushes that way. No! And yes, I feel you. Houston, New Orleans solidarity, especially during hurricane season. Yeah, that 1 hour wait time for just nothing. I mean, we're waiting on, normally masking fluid dries very quickly, and we're waiting on the masking fluid to dry. So while I wait for this to dry, because if you can still see it, I mean, you'll see a little bit of maybe like light reflection, since it is a latex product and it can reflect the light. But if you're still seeing the white flecks on your paper, it's because it hasn't fully dried. And like I said, you don't want to paint on top of it before it's fully dried. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to just kind of re-lay out desk to accommodate the next part of the tutorial. And that way, when it has finally dried, we can just get rolling with that. I love teaching watercolor, but the dry times make it more of a challenge to teach, because there's a whole lot of like, just be patient. I'm sorry it's taken so long. So I'm going to grab some larger brushes. I have a flat. I'm not to use a flat. A mop is probably the best because you really want that like loose, fast coverage. I'm going to go grab another ceramic palette. And we're going to be focusing on our darker colors. Let me sit so that it's not like glitching out on me. Sorry, y'all. So we're going to be focusing on our indigos. We're going to be focusing on maybe Payne's Gray or neutral tint, black. We're going to be focusing on purple. You can definitely do some like undersea green in there. It really kind of, you can go like straight up black. You can dab in some like, you can dab in like some like actual black ink, some Sumi ink. You can try out the Van Gogh dust colors. That could be a lot of fun for this. What I would recommend avoiding for this, and this is just my own personal, is I'm looking for them. I have squirreled them away somewhere. The Derwent Graphitint. I'm trying. I have a field test for them. finally, I have this illustration that I inked on the Dora Arts watercolor round. The problem is the graphite, and I should know this, I'm no fool. The graphite just makes it way more gray and desaturated than I kind of wanted. So it's about finding that balance and finding that sweet spot. So while this is still drying, I'm going to go get a cup of clean water. I'm going to clean off one of my ceramic palettes, and I'll be back. I always am. I always come back. So if you guys, since it is 9:30, if you guys want, it's a wonderful opportunity to take a break, go to the bathroom, do some stretches, do some doodling, whatever you want to do. I'm cool with it. I love hanging out with you guys and drawing with y'all. And I'm just happy to hang out with y'all this evening. So I'm going to throw up that AFK just so that I can get this a chance to dry because it's being a little pokey, and I'll be back soon. Unfortunately, I'm still waiting on the masking fluid to finish drying. I don't know that the camera can pick it up. I feel bad mentioning that, but here we go. Sorry, it's like I said, it's been a long day, so I'm kind of tired, but that's okie-dokes. Also, there we go. All right, so here are some of my swatches from like trying to figure out how well these mix colors, how well this is the Derwent Graphitin. I did the unboxing swatch a while back, and since I was painting, or I'm going to be doing the field test on a cellulose paper, I wanted to kind of go back and experiment with these on a cellulose paper. So there's swatches, there's blend out swatches, I'm trying to do layering, I'm trying to do a bunch of different stuff. And I actually have notes for this, but the number one thing that kind of with me is that as you blend it out, sometimes instead of blending both the graphite and the color out, you end up with this really muddiness because the graphite is light enough that it moves with the water. Hello, Bo. So it's not like, say, maybe blending out something that has Lunar Black in it. So this test is, I did a layer of the Graphitin, then I did some core watercolor on top of it, trying to up the color vibrancy because I felt like the Graphitin was a little muted for what I wanted, didn't have quite enough color, and that's fine. As long as I disclose that in the field, that's not a big deal. And then I also wanted to see what would happen if I erase some of the graphite, and all it does is smear it. Sorry, my child needs attention. Let's see if he shows up. See, he's like graphite gray. So my biggest complaint so far about the Graphitin is that I don't really feel like it's like a line and wash kind of graphite or like a graphite wash. It's just kind of, the formulation isn't really doing it for me. It's kind of gritty. It's kind of smeary. And, it's a your mileage may vary sort of situation. You might see them, have tried them out, absolutely love them. I am sure there are other people here on YouTube who adore them. But that's why there are so many art supplies out there. Not every single one is going to be for every single artist. Yeah, Bo. Except when I try to point a camera on him and then he's like, yes. He does not want to be a YouTube star. No. Big baby. I guess this is what he wanted. Your chair's all set up. You can go sit over there and be my co-pilot. Yeah, co-pilot. That's a good boy. Jump on that chair. Oh, I might be my own worst enemy and just go ahead and start painting because honestly, it could take forever for all intents and purposes. It could take a million years that we don't have. And as much as I love hanging out with y'all and I appreciate y'all hanging out with me, I think no one was here for like planning on hanging out like literally all night. Yeah, that's right. He's big baby and Dax is little baby. So for this, I don't want it to be just black. And I'm also going to end up using Lunar Black a little later on too. I want to get like a bunch of color. So I'm grabbing some of the Daniel Smith Undersea Green. And I really want to get like a lot of wet into wet, just like really nice blending. I want to work fast. I want to work kind of loose. I'm going to grab some of this cool blue because for this, I'm not necessarily looking for like, this is watercolor. I'm not, this is watercolor. This is fireworks. I'm going for, this is how fireworks feel. And if it wasn't so ding dang humid outside, I would even do another layer where I mask some of this off, right? So that you get like that aura effect, and then do black on top of that. Ooh, the indigo on top of the orange is really kind of cool. I don't know. Maybe I'll be bad and do that anyway. Try to get some wet into wet with the black. So now I'm grabbing some neutral tint. And I'm working on a block because we're really, the number one thing we're really doing tonight is we're working with water. And I've had the fan on the entire time, just trying to keep the air moving, keep the circulation going, so this doesn't turn into like an 8-hour tour. And one of the downsides for that is, as slow as everything has been drying, it seems like when I want stuff to do like beautiful wet into wet blends, it just dries too quick for that. So I'm going to work kind of quick. We're going to move now into purple. You can already see where it's drying in some areas. You could spritz this down with water if you want to. I love how it's got this like sleepy sort of dreamlike thing going on. I'm grabbing like a naphthalide maroon, so kind of a dark reddish color. Grab some more purple. Maybe I'll try to get some blue violet. Maybe I'll go back in to our undersea green. I mean, this is when the colors get really exciting. You know, when you see how they mix together, when you see how they overlap, how they play together, how this hot pink affects undersea green. I'm going to grab some more of our purple. Kind of get that in there. And it's kind of got like this Disney World fireworks vibe, you know? And like realistically, it would actually be brighter maybe towards the center, but we're kind of going with this like feeling of fireworks rather than like this is actual fireworks, you know? So one thing we can start doing is we can start kind of working our way around the piece, doing different colors, getting that wet into wet blend. As stuff starts to dry, we can start darkening some of these colors. You can use black, you can start using like indigo and purple. Because we're going to create kind of a glow effect by kind of working our way around and leaving some areas of glow and some areas darker. My complaint is, see, that's already started to dry, so we get there's some gorgeous colors up there though. That's really pretty. What I'm gonna do in a minute is spray that with some water and hopefully, yeah, I hear you, bud. I know you would rather me be paying attention to you than painting. I hear ya. I'm gonna mix some of that out. Yeah, I'm kind of digging how this is coming along. Now I know. What's up, buddy? I can't stop. I'm painting. We're in painting town. We can't just stop. I can't pick you up right this minute. I love all the diffused colors that we're getting. I'm trying to both pet the cat and paint. I also have like a lid with salt in it because I want to do some salt techniques too. Yeah, that's right. Woo! So sorry, buddy. I'm sorry. I got him by accident. Now you want to avoid sprinkling salt into areas where it's really pooled because it is not going to do any good. Because what it does is it basically pushes the water out of its immediate area. So it can be great for creating kind of that, like, you know how fireworks have kind of like an aura? It can be great for creating like a firework aura. And I'm using kosher salt because it has bigger flakes. I tried using Himalayan sea salt because I thought we could get some like really neat chunky effects. Not really. So kosher salt is more like flakes rather than like salt crystals or like salt crystals. Big salt crystals, I guess. Small salt crystals and big salt crystals. I don't know. I'm liking how this is looking. The way it's drying is pretty cool too. And I'm gonna do a bad, and I'm gonna paint while there's salt on the paper because I do want to try and catch as much of that wet into wet as possible. So I'm gonna grab some Lunar Black because it's got like this really strong black granulation. If I could get enough of it out of the tube to be worth a dang. And try to dab some of that in. I don't want to disturb, see I wanted like a heavier mix of this because I don't want to disturb the colors too much, but I do want some of that beautiful dark granulation. Because you can see if I put too much more water on this very wet paper, it's just going to head to the edges. It's not going to do anything nice. It's just going to make a run for it. And I'm basically trying to avoid the areas that already did have salt. Now I finally got some. And the bummer about the salt is that you really shouldn't remove it until it dries, because it's not really going to have all that much effect if you remove it too soon. I do have one like minor kvetch that I'd like to air just because it was kind of a plague for me when we were doing the Northern Lights stream, and it's kind of rearing its nasty head. But like trying to do watercolor on a stream when the humidity is stupidly high is just really, really challenging. And I have so many ideas I want to do for this and so many things I think would look really cool. But I kind of can't because ideally you want to step away and let it dry 12 hours and then come back and do some of those things. Or you want to let it dry fully and then come back. And there's just not like a good way right now to facilitate that. And with it being like stupid humid outside right now, that's just not really going to happen. So I think there's some really cool things going on. I wish I could further push those, further develop those. I wish I could do like another layer of splatter and mask some of this off and then splatter on top of that. You know, like there's a lot of really cool things, but between the humidity and the dry times, I just can't justify that. Firework. That would be really cute. Aw, no. We can start calling you that if you would like. So, it does look cool. There's cool things about it. Like ideally, I'd add a little more masking fluid to it. Maybe do some like background, like fireworks, mask that off, and then do like a layer with lots more black kind of infringing upon it to make the colors and the glow really pop. And then before I did any of that, I'd really like it to dry fully so I can remove the salt and then let it dry maybe overnight and remove the masking fluid. I don't know. Maybe I'll just like in the stream be bad and in the stream here and try to finish this up tomorrow and share the full thing as a like later on in the evening. What do you guys think about that? Because I'd like to take it further, and I just know with the way the weather is right now, I can't. Need to do the cooking show technique where you already have a completed one to show at the end. Yeah. There's some people on here who do that, and it does have like a more professional look, you know, because they like tried the thing out completely and then they're doing like a start to finish tutorial. And I have a lot of respect for them. They are better teachers than I am, but that's boring for me to do. Yeah, I want some. Yeah, that's my problem is like I want that like the dark of the night kind of infringing on it so that you get that glow. So what I think I'm going to do is I think I am going to tell you guys good evening. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your evening, a happy weekend. If you celebrate the 4th of July, I hope you have a fantastic 4th of July. I hope you guys continue to stay safe and healthy and happy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to let this dry fully and do those things I wanted to try doing. Do some more masking fluid on it. Have the black kind of infringe upon it more and brush off that salt, so develop it a little bit more. I will record that on my secondary recording device. I've been using that the whole time as I was doing the stream anyway. So I have the footage, and hopefully I can get that out to you guys as a condensed video sometime tomorrow as a thank you for your patience. But I did have a lot of fun with this. All of my grousing is more my disappointment in the weather. I should have known it was going to storm all night. I was hoping it would get itself done earlier in the day. It did not. Can't control the weather. But, you know, I think that's also an important lesson in, honestly, how much the weather can affect when you do traditional art. I know a lot of you guys know that. But, you know, it isn't necessarily something that's talked about a whole lot. So that, you know, sometimes it's a good reminder that we can't control everything about our art. So I will see you guys next week with my favorite watercolor supplies stream for World Watercolor Month. Again, if you are participating in World Watercolor Month, I am cheering you on from the sidelines. I am not going to be doing the 31 prompts. I think a watercolor a day in these weather conditions is just not something I can actually accomplish, so I'm not going to beat myself up trying. But if you are, go you! That's awesome. And I'll see you guys next week. So I hope you guys, thank you guys. I will share the finished picture because I'll probably have a finished picture before I have time to edit it, if you know what I mean. I'll share that to the community tab to give you guys something to look forward to. But I think you also get kind of the gist of the technique. So I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend, and I hope to see you guys again next week. So bye, guys.